Think of what the average Super Bowl commercial entails just from a planning stage. Each Super Bowl ad is carefully crafted and takes months and months of preparation and storyboarding, because it has to be that way. Not even counting production costs and paying the actors, many of whom are celebrities, the going rate for a 30-second advertisement at Super Bowl 60 is $8 million. Break that down, and that's roughly $266,000 a second. For some perspective on how much an ad costs, the average blink of an eye is roughly 300 milliseconds, meaning that every time you blink during a Super Bowl commercial, that is roughly $89,000 of airtime that you did not see. And again, that's just the spot for the ad. These ads cost a good amount of money to make and design. These commercials are planned down to the nanosecond and are meticulously crafted to put together the best product possible that's going to resonate with viewers, get them to buy the product, and potentially be shown for months and years down the road as iconic ads that represent the company well and get immediate brand recognition. So what if the company just decided to say screw it and do the commercial live? Imagine a company taking a 60-second spot at the Super Bowl to get their message out there, having no idea how it's going to go, and knowing that any screw-up can't be fixed, can't be undone, can't be removed, and could even cut into how much of the ad can be shown. Well, that's exactly what happened at Super Bowl 15 with Schlitz, when they decided, as a last-ditch effort to save the company from its tanking reputation, to not only air a Super Bowl ad, but air an ad the likes of which most people had never seen before, at least not on this stage. A live advertisement. A Super Bowl ad cost $275,000 back then for 30 seconds. So for a 60-second spot, Schlitz will be paying $550,000, which comes out to roughly $2 million when adjusted for inflation, which is 8 times less than what a 60-second ad would run you today at the Super Bowl, but is still a ton of money nonetheless. And to do it live, it's a big gamble that needs to be dissected 45 years later, because this is the story behind what might just be, considering the circumstances, the riskiest commercial in the history of the Super Bowl. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel, because we post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the Super Bowl commercial that was a super gamble. But before I dive into the specifics of the ad, we need some context to understand what Schlitz was, and more importantly, why the company was in a free fall and felt the need to throw up a Hail Mary at the big game. And I'm not going to dive too much into the weeds of why Schlitz had fallen off, because there's so much content out there, and the downfall of Schlitz was so disastrous and well known that it literally has its own phrase, the Schlitz mistake, named after it to describe the problems that other companies face. But long story short, the company was the #1 beer company in the United States from a sales standpoint and a production standpoint for years. Then, after Anheuser-Busch, otherwise known as the company that makes Budweiser, got into the game and overtook Schlitz from a production and a sales standpoint, Schlitz decided that they needed to cut down their costs and make their beer cheaper to produce so that they could be more profitable, even as their market share was declining. These changes included cheaper ingredients, replacing certain ingredients with other ones, and completely destroying the fermentation process. And with changes to the recipe little by little, Schlitz went from the #2 brewer in the United States and a trusted product to the #4 brewer and a company whose reputation was in the gutter. That's the Schlitz mistake. Gradual changes to a company that, while each individual change might not seem awful at the time, add up to a completely unrecognizable product. So by this point in the early 80s, Schlitz had a problem. Their sales were declining, their reputation was in the gutter, their beer sucked, and their advertising campaigns to try and win back people in the late 70s absolutely sucked as well, to the point where it's one of the most infamous advertising campaigns in history, known today as the Drink Schlitz or I'll Kill You ads. And while ads like this can work, as we saw with Wilkins Coffee back in the 1950s, it's a lot different when it's playful and with puppets versus men with stilted dialogue and poor acting, and when it feels threatening. The workers at Schlitz were not being paid competitive wages, they were struggling financially due to having to recall millions of bottles in the late 70s and that failed advertising campaign, and they were on the verge of being bought out. Nothing was going right for Schlitz, but they sensed an opportunity. How can we convince people that our beer tastes good? How can we convince people that our beer can compete with the likes of Miller, Budweiser, and Michelob? How can we convince people that we're no longer using cheap ingredients and we're making beer the right way again? Maybe we can't do it through spokespeople and celebrities and carefully crafted advertisements, but we can do it through the American people and word of mouth. And that's when the idea was born to do a live taste test. During halftime of Super Bowl 15, Schlitz was going to ask 100 people which beer they preferred, Schlitz or Michelob. It was going to be a blind taste test. Now, they conducted a few of these live on the air before. Throughout the entire playoffs, any game that aired on NBC featured a live ad like this at halftime. But obviously, there was nothing on this scale with this magnitude, especially considering the fact that Schlitz had no idea what the results were going to be, and routinely lost these tests, especially against Miller, where less than 40% of people said they prefer the taste of Schlitz. How it worked was like this. Schlitz set up a studio space in New Orleans. Linden Research, a New Orleans-based research firm, called up over 1,200 people to ask if they wanted to be a part of this. Each person who said yes had to sign a sworn affidavit that they were a Michelob fan and that Michelob was their preferred beer of choice, with the affidavit confirming that they drank at least 2 six-packs of Michelob per week. Each person also got paid $20 for their troubles. Plus, they got free beer out of it. During halftime of the Super Bowl, each person would try the taste of Schlitz and try the taste of Michelob. Then, during the live portion of the advertisement, each person would pull a lever to indicate which beer they preferred, not knowing which one it was. And if you're wondering whether this was legit or not, it absolutely was. For starters, the contest was refereed by this man right here, longtime NFL ref Tommy Bell, who also was a lawyer as his main job when he wasn't calling NFL games for years. Basically, Bell had a reputation to uphold. Bell was not only a widely respected referee, but he was the referee at Super Bowl III and Super Bowl VII, just to give you an idea of how prominent he was in NFL spheres. Said Bell on the advertisement, they wanted to get somebody to referee and did a national survey on name recognition. They must have talked to a lot of my friends or my enemies because they picked me. If I don't forget my lines, it might turn out to be a good commercial. And it's not like Bell had any skin in the game in terms of preferring one beer over the other, seeing as Bell didn't even drink. But Schlitz was thrilled that they could get Bell on board with this, because it established some credibility to the campaign. Said one Schlitz spokesperson, Tommy Bell has the reputation for being the fairest referee in the business. In fact, someone here in the company used the cliche, pure as the driven snow. We're convinced when he says he's going to call it as 100 drinkers taste it, he means it. And the football fans who will be watching this know that his will be the final word. And Bell added on to that, saying, frankly, there's no way I would personally endorse anybody's beer. But Schlitz knew that going in, and still offered me the opportunity to do something new, challenging, and exciting because it's live. The independent research people are making sure there's total impartiality, and that's my way of calling a game. It was the integrity of the experiment that really impressed me. So this taste test especially seeing as Schlitz lost in previous installments of this, was 100% legit, and even involved people having a neutral beer, which in this case was Coors, 30 minutes beforehand just to get their taste buds warmed up. And there was also a second round of auditing. Every step that Schlitz could have taken to ensure that this was fair was done. But obviously, the ad airing at halftime of this game right here was extremely risky. There was no way of knowing what the results were going to be. What if Schlitz spent all that money on an ad, spent all that money doing research and getting people, spent all that money on getting the warehouse and building the set and hiring cameramen and Tommy Bell, and only 5 people switched? What if Bell forgot his lines and had a brain fart, seeing as he wasn't a trained actor at all? What if there were any glitches? The future of the company and its reputation were riding on this ad. As one writer said, here is a company going before the nation's most competition-crazed citizens, football fans, offering them a beer battle. We believe in Schlitz is the commercial's real message, just as you believe in your favorite team. Like your team, we're not afraid to put ourselves to the test. Like your team, we'll do it live, in front of the whole country. And like your team, we go head-to-head against our toughest competitors. Noble intentions, but would it work? Well, there's only one way to find out. Roll the tape.
Live from New Orleans, Schlitz versus Michelob in the Great American Beer Test.
Hi, I'm Tommy Bell. 3 weeks ago, in a live taste test, 50% of 100 Lawyer blood drinkers preferred Schlitz. 2 weeks ago, 37% of 100 Lawyer Miller drinkers picked Schlitz after just one glass. And today, I'm refereeing a taste test as Schlitz takes out Michelob with 100 loyal Michelob drinkers live. They've already tasted Michelob in Schlitz and these unmarked mugs. And remember, all 100 of these folks are sworn Michelob drinkers. But when I blow my whistle, let's see how many actually prefer the taste of Schlitz. Be ready. 20, 30, 49, 50%. 50% of loyal Michelob drinkers preferred the taste of today's Schlitz. I don't think one of these people felt like they would pick Schlitz, but the taste convinced 50 of them. Let the taste of today's Schlitz convince you. Now let's go back to that Super Bowl and see if the Raiders can hold on to that 11-point lead.
The gamble, at least for the moment, paid off. They got an even 50% of people to switch. For the first time ever in one of these polls, they crossed the 50% mark. And to say that Schlitz was thrilled about this result, even despite the minor hiccup that Bell had, where he fumbled his lines and seemed to pause for a brief moment to catch himself, would be putting it lightly. As John Rourke, the vice president of public relations for the company, said on this, what did we get? We got half of the Michelob drinkers to switch to Schlitz, live and in color. We think that's a favorable result. The tests have reasserted the fact that Schlitz is one of the 3 leading national beers. So that's the good news for Schlitz. Their campaign to let people know that they changed their recipe back to what it was before worked. And they showed that they were no longer a cheap beer using cheap ingredients. It was the Schlitz you grew up with before the 70s. The bad news was that by this point, it was too little, too late. The company was bleeding money. And even though Schlitz was happy with this result, the damage had been done, and there was no going back. Their Hail Mary attempt did not work long term, and 1 year later, the company was bought out. Just like that, nearly 150 years of history and prominence as one of the top beers of the nation was erased. Maybe the Hail Mary would have worked if they bought more ad time explaining how the process worked, because even though they did everything they could to show that it was legit, I can understand the skepticism that a lot of consumers had, especially since it worked out to an even 50%. Maybe the Hail Mary would have worked if they aired the ad elsewhere besides halftime, where few people were watching the show back then. But I'm not sure they could have done anything, even despite the ad's success and messaging. Once you lose the trust of people, there's not much you can do to get it back. Even if you got 90% of people to switch, I'm not sure this would have worked. Very few companies can successfully turn around their failing image overnight, and Schlitz was on the way out even despite this Hail Mary that seemingly worked in the short term. Regardless, this has to be the riskiest commercial in Super Bowl history, even if Schlitz had nothing to lose at this point. To put your product up against someone else's product in front of a live television audience, having no idea what the results are going to be, to put your reputation on the line and risk hundreds of thousands of dollars and probably millions based on everything that needed to be done to get this ad to get off the ground, just for it to potentially backfire in more ways than one? I'm not sure we're ever going to see another ad like this ever again, especially with the money involved in a Super Bowl ad nowadays. Because on this day in January of 1981, Schlitz was on a mission in front of the entire country to prove that their beer wasn't so Schlitty after all. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.